isn't too late for a Renaissance Fair project, right? I mean, I know like where I live, the Renaissance Fair has been over for a few weeks now, and it was like a pretty short window during the summer, but I'm pretty sure there are parts of the country where Renaissance Fair is still happening and will keep happening. So maybe think of this as like for next year or for the places that still have a Renaissance Fair going on. But I am going to make, well, I already made it. I am going to show you how I made my Renaissance Fair costume. Part of this is a little bit cheating because I actually used the skirt that I made in my last video as the skirt of my costume. And I kind of don't feel bad about it at all because, truth be told, I have a sort of odd relationship with costumes. I don't love to make them simply because I don't have room anywhere in my apartment that isn't for something practical. So if I'm making clothes, I need to feel pretty confident that I can rewear them and that they're going to serve additional purposes just other than for the costume that I'm thinking of. So the white skirt I've worn tons and tons of time, and I feel really good about that, especially because it's the big item of the costume. It takes up the most space, so that was just like a lovely summer skirt. It also happened to work for my costume. But for the top, a little bit less practical, you might say. I don't know if too many people are wearing like these hobbit inspired Ren Faire tops, but I've always really wanted to make one, and I have the most perfect fabric for it, so I'm definitely gonna do that. And if I don't end up wearing it as much, that's okay because it's a really small item, but I think that I could wear it. I think I will figure out ways that I can wear it with just like jeans or whatever. So this is how I made it, and I hope you enjoy. So now that the skirt is done, I was ready to move on to the corset top, and I had this fabric that I was really, really into. I kind of searched high and low for exactly what I wanted. I found this kind of like viscose crepe floral fabric that was honestly the perfect design. It was exactly like the colors I was looking for, but it's very clearly like a printed pattern over top of the fabric. It's not like a brocade or something where it's woven into the fabric. So one thing I wanted to try though to make it a little bit more intricate is some embroidery. I thought maybe I could embellish it a bit with some thread and give it that kind of woven texture feel, even though it will never really look like a brocade, but maybe it's just enough of a decorative element that it'll give that feeling. So I watched some YouTube videos, I watched some tutorials on Pinterest even. I found a few really simple stitches that I could do, and I've been practicing them, so I'm gonna give it a go on the actual corset. I decided to use the classic Butterick corset top pattern. I feel like we've all seen somebody making this at some point, and if you make any kind of whimsical or fantasy clothing, you probably made it too. It's not really a corset, there's no structure in this pattern, but it gives that kind of like waistcoat hobbit effect that I'm going for. I'm cutting out the pieces on some heavyweight cotton twill. I always have a few yards of this on hand. My fabric, as I showed, is a really flimsy viscose crepe, so in order to work with this garment and also to support the embroidery, it just really needs some interfacing structure. I traced the lines with this yellow chalk, however it was really difficult to get nice and vibrant, so I'm also tracing the lines with thread.
I cut the twill on the pattern lines, but for the crepe, I'm actually cutting several inches around the pattern lines because I want to have the excess while I'm trying to embroider it in a hoop. I'm now basting the cotton twill to the main fabric, making sure the edges match my threaded lines. I'm trying to compare the two front pieces because I want the floral pattern to feel somewhat continuous. For the back piece, I wanted to use a different fabric, similar to how a waistcoat might have a different fabric on the back. I have this lovely burgundy corduroy. So it turned out that I really wasn't able to make the hoop work. I'm not sure if it was just my general lack of experience or if it was because the cotton twill was too thick, but I couldn't get it to stay in the hoop without popping out, so I just kind of abandoned it and went forward without it. I'm not sure why, but I decided to start with a French knot, which is basically twisting the thread around the needle a few times before securing it back into the fabric. As this is my first real time doing embroidery, I'm not going to make this a tutorial, but I do love the way this gives tiny three-dimensional details to the smaller flower clusters. Next I tried some straight, or maybe they are called satin stitches. I'm just trying to fill in the shapes using the thread direction and the length to give some detail to the image.
Did some just kind of filling in some lazy daisy stitches over what I think are actually maybe daisies, although admittedly they got a little bit lazier as time went on. I did my French knots and just did some like really simple lines in places. I didn't fill up the whole thing because, well, I didn't really want to, but also I just simply don't have the time or the patience or the wrist strength for that. I think this is nice though. This is just a little simple addition that didn't take me too long and I think turned out really cute. This is the inside, but I will have a lining.
Now onto said lining. I pieced together a bunch of white linen scraps because that was all I really had. And now I'm going to join the two together around all the open edges. I'll be using bias tape to finish the edges, and I chose this oxblood color pre-made because I really did not have time to make any myself.
2 packets if you're gonna do these guys. You do have the option of doing a bag lining method, which is when you put the lining in right sides together, stitch along the top, cut, clip along the curves, and then flip the whole thing out, and then maybe top stitch or like, you know, whatever, that method. So in doing that, you wouldn't have as much of the bias tape that I have, but I really wanted the bias tape to be like a feature, so I've decided to go for not doing the bag lining method and instead doing it this way, and I'm using bias tape around all the parts that are disconnected from the lining. So this way the bias tape is really more of a feature in the design. Additionally, when you do it this way, the way that I'm doing, you can have another interesting fabric on the inside. It's actually reversible this way, so I could wear it with the lining facing out and it would look just as good, but the lining I have in there is a little bit see-through. I think for my particular version it wouldn't work as nicely, but I could have picked like the same or similar fabric to do on the inside. So, okay, you might be wondering, what do you do when you're connecting the bias tape back on itself? So I've got the extra that I don't need all of, and when I started I left like just this little tail hanging off, because what you're gonna do, you're going to see where they overlap by however much your seam allowance is, and mine is maybe like ½ inch, and I'm gonna cut it, and you can be precise with like a ruler and stuff. So I'm gonna cut it about right there, and now I'm going to I'm gonna unfold them and put them right sides together, and sew across like this. Okay, so I've sewn it across. If you want, you can like iron this down, but I never do that. So then I'm just gonna fold everything back the way it was, and it should line up and fit perfectly, which it does, so that worked. And now I'm just gonna continue. I back stitched at either end, so now I'm just gonna fill that in and be done.
Okay, finally on the home stretch, I am going to add the grommets using this tool, which I believe is really for making tarps. But it's great though. You add the grommet pieces to either side of the press, and then it cuts the fabric for you and everything. Sometimes you might have to poke it out with something pointy though. One final quick piece to the costume is the rather essential flouncy shirt for wearing underneath the corset top. I have this ultra lightweight cotton with a lovely block print floral pattern on it. It's quite sheer, but it's perfect for under the corset, and with all the gathering in the end, the sheerness won't be noticeable. I start by tearing it into large rectangles that I will be sewing into tubes. I want the bodice tube to be like 2 to 3 times my bust measurement. I believe I just went selvage to selvage for this part. As I said, this part is truly like quick and dirty, so I am just using the selvages as the finished edges, and that is it. As for the sleeves, this will be an off-the-shoulder top, so the sleeves will also be rectangles, another 2 to 3 times wider than the widest part of your arm, but the amount of flounce is of course a personal preference. Once completed, I have attached them seam to seam to the bodice tube, just a couple of inches. This is the armpit of the shirt, so it should only be sewn about 2 to 3 inches on either direction of the inside seam. I then measured some elastic to fit snugly but comfortably around my shoulders. This is going to be sewn at the top edge around the entirety of the shirt, including the sleeves. You're going to use a zigzag stitch, then flip over and sew it down again. Alternatively, you could make a channel and guide the elastic through using a safety pin. You're going to do the same thing for the sleeve cuffs. And with that, it is time for the reveal. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful or at least entertaining. I think it turned out well, and I definitely intend to style all of these pieces in everyday wear, not just for my costume. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.